It was the year 1991, the same year my father handed me the deed to the ranch. That padlock, the one that would become so important, sat in a drawer in the ranch office for the next 22 years. I knew exactly where it was the entire time. In November, I finally needed it. On a cold Monday morning in early December at 7 a.m., I drove to the western gate with two things in the truck: a closure notice my attorney had prepared and the padlock my father had bought. I posted the notice on the gate, securing it with a chain. The notice wasn't just any letter. It was a comprehensive legal document complete with attachments like the certified boundary survey and the 1991 road deed. It was all there, clearly stating that the road, despite being used by the HOA for decades, was mine, no easement granted, no permissions given. After locking the gate, I drove back to the ranch and fed the cattle. By 4:47 p.m., the first car arrived. The driver read the notice, hesitated, then reversed. By 5:30, my neighbor Walt Pewitt had counted 27 vehicles lined up on the approach road, all drivers standing in the cold reading the notice and realizing that the road they had driven for 22 years wasn't public after all. They were all shocked. Nobody had ever mentioned it was private. This wasn't just any road. It had been part of my family's land since my father graded it by hand in 1978. It had been recorded in the county deed office in 1979, then transferred to me in 1991. It was officially mine, and for 44 years not a single easement had been recorded. But the Pinnacle Ridge HOA had ignored all of that. 6 weeks ago, they'd fenced the road and padlocked it with a sign proclaiming authorized access only, a sign they had no right to put there. My attorney Meredith had warned me to document everything and keep quiet. I already knew where the padlock was. Before we go further, let me ask, where are you watching from? And while you're here, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on more stories like this. Let me introduce Cord Baxter. He's driven that western perimeter road of his ranch for 34 years, not out of routine, but because he understands that a 420-acre cattle operation requires constant attention. Problems on a ranch are small if you spot them early. Cord was driving that road at 6:52 a.m. one Wednesday in early November. He had his coffee in the cup holder and the radio off as always, watching the fence lines, the cattle in the lower pasture, and the light rising over the plateau where the Pinnacle Ridge subdivision now stands. He's watched that plateau for 22 years, ever since the developer turned it into a subdivision with 287 homes. And he had never once raised an issue about the road that connected their neighborhood to the county highway. That road had always been part of his family's property, recorded under the Baxter name in 1991. But when Cord came around the corner at the southwestern edge of his property that morning, he saw at another fence. This wasn't the first fence. About 6 weeks earlier, they had installed one along his southern boundary. That one ran right through his grazing land. Cord hadn't been happy about it, but it was an encroachment, unauthorized. But this new fence, this was something else. It wasn't just a boundary fence. It was across his road. Cord stopped his truck, looked at it through the windshield, and immediately knew it was different. The posts were freshly set in concrete, the barbed wire taut and bright in the morning light. A swing gate padlocked with a laminated tag reading Pinnacle Ridge HOA Community Perimeter Authorized Access Only. It wasn't just a minor issue anymore. This was an act of authority. The HOA had fenced off his access road, cutting him off from his own property. And it wasn't just a simple mistake or a survey error, it was deliberate. Cord got out of the truck and walked to the gate. He looked at the lock. He examined the posts, the metal anchors, and the connection to the southern fence that had gone up 6 weeks earlier. He took photos from all angles, north-south, and close-ups of the padlock, the tag, the concrete footings. This was real, and it was happening right now. He called Meredith. She had been his legal advisor for years, and when she heard the situation, she didn't hesitate. She told him to stay calm, document everything, and do nothing until the full record was complete. But she warned him this wasn't a small trespass. This was a legal claim. That day, Cord documented everything. And when he sent the photos to Meredith, she confirmed what he already knew. This wasn't just an encroachment. This was the HOA asserting control over land they didn't own. It triggered trespass remedies that would be immediate and actionable. It was a clear violation, one that needed to be addressed. Meredith's advice: do nothing. The case was building, and now it was about to get serious. The HOA had just made a fatal mistake by asserting ownership of the road. Their error was going to cost them. But Cord had no plans to respond quickly. He wasn't one to rush into action. His father had taught him that land required patience and that the law would catch up eventually. For now he would wait. He would continue to feed the cattle, work the land, and wait for the paperwork to complete. Fast forward to December, and the time for patience had come to an end. The closure notice was posted, the padlock was locked shut, and the entire Pinnacle Ridge HOA was about to find out that they had been using a private road for the last 22 years without a single legal right to do so. By 4:47 p.m., the first car arrived. By 5:30, 27 cars were lined up. And the community began to realize everything they thought they knew about their access to the road was wrong. It wasn't public. It was never public. It belonged to Cord, and now the gate was locked. The HOA wasn't prepared for the backlash, and neither was Sandra Hollis, the HOA president, who had made the decision to fence the road without checking the deed. She had made a grave mistake, one that would cost the community dearly. Sandra's confidence, which had carried her through years of leadership, now faltered, and soon she would face the consequences of her decisions. It wasn't just about a fence anymore. It was about power, property rights, and the truth coming to light. In the end, the road was reopened, and Cord didn't rush into action. He let the process unfold. But in the quiet aftermath, when the gate swung open again, there was something satisfying about seeing the road free once more. Cord had been patient, but now he had won. He had fought for what was his, and the law had finally caught up to the people who had tried to take what wasn't theirs. The road, like the land itself, belonged to him, and no one could take that away. The lesson. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is wait. Let the truth come to light, and let the consequences unfold on their own. What do you think? Did the HOA get what they deserved, or was Cord too harsh in locking the gate? Share your thoughts in the comments.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video. Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.